And I was like looking at her and looking at the lingerie and looking at her and looking at the lingerie. Welcome back, travel fans. I'm Morgan from the very unofficial travel guides, and today on Sunday Sofatime, I'm gonna tell you about the time that I got picked up by a cougar. Welcome back, everybody. I'm laughing because this story popped up in my head kind of like last week's Sunday Sofa Time. It was something that I never really forgot about, but I just didn't think about. And I didn't think about that I could possibly tell it as a Sunday Sofa Time. But it happened to me while I was traveling. It's something that maybe, that other people have had to deal with. And that's why I thought I would tell this story. And I know that if this is the first of my videos you're watching, it's going to give you a totally different impression of the kind of videos I usually make here. And this is probably going to be something that will be very entertaining for people who have been around here for a while. And just to get it out of the way in advance, if you're new here, then please subscribe to my channel. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can support me on patreon.com/veryunofficial, or you can buy some fun t-shirts at teespring.com/stores/very-unofficial-travel-guides. Good. Now the story. To set up this story, we need to go way back. It is probably about 15 years ago that this happened to me. It was before I met Marcus. It was sort of not long after I moved to Germany, and it was one of the first and maybe few times that I had done a very big vacation on my own, like with no one accompanying me. And I've made a video about why I think that that is great. It's in my Sunday Storytime playlist, so you can check that out if it interests you. And the reason that I did this alone is because it was something very specific that I wanted to do, and that was go to tennis camp. This is something I don't talk about a lot on this channel, but I love to play tennis. I played tennis when I was in high school, and I was really terrible in high school. But now that I'm an adult, I play, sort of like as a hobby, and if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see, you will have seen me posting that I've gone to tennis. You'll see how I win, how I lose, and all that kind of stuff in my Instagram story. Anyways, this was something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to go sort of in the fall, someplace warm, and play a lot of tennis. So I went to a travel agent. The travel agent recommended that I go to this resort. It's called the Princess Resort. And it was on the island of Fuerteventura, which is a Spanish island off the coast of Africa. It's a gigantic, all-inclusive resort where all the rooms are sort of like suites with balconies looking out over the ocean. It had a gigantic sort of like spa area, lots of tennis courts, and a lot of people go there to play tennis. They have like a big tennis program there. And so I booked, was it 1 week or 2 weeks? I think I was there for at least a week, if not 10 days, and booked like this tennis package with training and tournaments and stuff like that. And I was really looking forward to it. And because I didn't really know a lot of other people who would really be into that, I just decided to do it on my own. The time came, I flew down there, got in the transfer bus from the airport to this resort. I had never been to Fuerteventura before. Like I said, it's an island in the middle of the ocean. Well, most islands are surrounded by water, Morgan. It's usually warm there year-round. There are certain beaches that people go to do a lot of windsurfing because it's traditionally very windy there, I guess. But it's just sort of nice. It's kind of like, I don't know, like how Americans go to Hawaii, Europeans go to like Fuerteventura and Gran Canaria and Mallorca. So it's one of those islands. And I remember my first impression was, wow, this is amazing. My room was amazing. There had all these different pool areas, like I said, fantastic views of the ocean, fantastic beach, and I just was like totally psyched about this week and playing tennis and eating the great food and just sort of hanging out and chilling on my own. So I arrived there later in the afternoon and went to dinner on my own the first night, and the next morning was the first sort of like tennis meeting. So I got up, put on my tennis stuff, grabbed my tennis bag, went to the tennis, like complex there, the setup with all the courts and the clubhouse and all that. And there were several other people there. Let's say, I want to say there's probably, well, how many tennis courts were there? 1, 2, 3, 4 tennis courts. And if we all played doubles, there's probably like 16 people there, around 16 people of all different ages. And at the time, I was probably in my late 20s or early 30s. So it was a much younger Morgan, a much fitter Morgan, maybe a less experienced Morgan, let's say that as well. The way it worked, the way it was set up was, you had to book like this experience in advance. So all these people were sort of on the same page. And most of them had also just shown up either the day before or a couple days before, and we got put into like these training groups where we had like training for a couple hours, and then we had like friendly matches where we played against each other in singles or in doubles, and it was always mixed. Before even we played the first match, there was like a meet and greet with everybody who was going to be doing this then for the next week or week and a half or whatever it was. And already at the meet and greet, that was the first time that this woman sort of like, I don't know, stuck out in my head. Let me introduce you to her. Her name was Anna, like Anna and Elsa from Frozen. And I'm not changing her name because, there's really nothing bad that happened here, and I'm sure that she's never gonna see this video and none of you will ever run into her. But her name was Anna. Anna was probably getting close to 50 at the time, and like I said, I was late 20s, early 30s, but Anna was in fantastic shape. The first time I remember seeing her, she was leaning against a wall with palm trees behind her in this very well-fitting little tennis dress, and she had like her big Gucci sunglasses on and a visor, and she was like, kind of like in the sun. I would not say that Anna hadn't had some work done, but the work she had done looked very natural. It looked very well on her. She was just a very fit, good-looking woman of around 50 years old. So in this meet and greet, people were walking around talking to each other, and I was going around saying hello to everybody, introducing myself. I was the only American in this group. Everybody else was from some European country, and like Germany, England. I think maybe there was somebody there from France as well. And Anna is, or was German. She was from Berlin. And, I live in Germany. I could speak German with her, so we spoke to each other in German. And immediately I noticed just sort of like some weird, like there was just something different about my conversation with Anna. Like she seemed somewhat uncomfortable, and seemed to like not want to leave, like leaning on this wall as she was. And I mean, she looked good leaning on this wall, and I don't know, I just didn't think anything about it other than, okay, well, she seemed, I don't know, like she was kind of glued to that spot. And she asked me the same questions that everybody asked me. When you travel like I do and you have sort of the career history that I do, it gets kind of repetitive. Like when I meet people and they ask me what I do and I tell them what I do, it always leads to like a one-way conversation because most people haven't met somebody who has performed in big musicals and who has worked in showbiz all his life and who makes YouTube videos. So like these rapid fire questions always come that I've answered so many times. And that's another reason why I don't like to eat in the main dining room. We get sat at a table with people who then all of a sudden do an interview of us. Anna asked these questions just like everybody else. I answered them just like everybody else, but I answered them in German. And she was complimenting, how well my German was. And here's an interesting thing. Anna was a hairdresser and cosmetologist. And shortly before I left for this trip, I got a really, really bad haircut. And so when she mentioned that she was worked in a salon, I was like, oh my gosh, look at what they just did to my hair. And I showed her, look, this is all too long, and here, this is shorter than this side, and can you believe this? I paid like 40 euros for this haircut. And she was totally sympathetic, and she was, touching my hair, and she's like, Morgan, you should go back there and demand your money back. Doing something like that, when you get a bad haircut like that, that's like, what did she call it? Körperverletzung. It's like, that's like assault, like bodily harm to do that to somebody's hair. And I was like, oh, I like this woman. She understands me and, she gets it. And so I was like, I'm so glad you see that. I want to hang out with you. I think we're on the same wavelength. Now that I tell this story and think about that, I'm sure that was probably one of the first, signals I sent to her that was wrongly interpreted. All right, so I need to speed this story up a little bit. We got put into tennis groups, and Anna was put in my first training group, and another thing that I noticed really quickly was that she was constantly complimenting my tennis. Like when we were on the same side of the net or when we were on opposite sides of the net, she was always, like giving me high fives and, like giving me little pointers, and she just seemed to be paying a lot of attention to me. And I assumed that she had like kind of a motherly instinct, that she was like, oh, this poor American, he's sort of an outsider here, he's all alone. By the way, Anna was also traveling alone. But I was thinking, that she was like, oh, I'm just gonna take care of him a little bit, make sure he has a good time. He's never been to one of these resorts before, and she had been there a few times before, so she actually knew some of the other people who were there playing, and she knew one of the trainers, and I felt like maybe she just wanted to sort of like take me under her wing. Wrong. So, we spent the most of the afternoon taking training together and playing matches together, and then it just was sort of natural that we decided that we would meet up for dinner. And I met her and one other woman who was playing with this group for dinner, and they were all dressed up for dinner, which was normal. I was also dressed up. Dressed up. I don't really like to get dressed up, but I think I had on, like a shirt with a collar and maybe some nice jeans or something. I don't know. Yeah, and I don't remember anything unusual about dinner that night, but then the next day we met and we played tennis again, and it all happened again. She somehow ended up in my group. She was giving me a lot of compliments. Then I noticed that she was also like talking to the other players about me. Like she was like, oh, be careful with him, he's got a mean forehand, and isn't playing against his backhand, isn't that weird? And it got to a point where I was like, okay girl, it's enough now. Let me just, blend in with the crowd. Please don't keep mentioning me. And I think within the week, we had like one day off from tennis. And she asked me what I was doing, and I said I didn't have any really plans, and that I was planning on hanging out at the pool. And she was like, oh cool, well then I'll hang out with you too. Which pool are you gonna meet at? And I was like, yeah, fine, we can hang out, I'm just gonna be reading. And we met, and then we laid at the pool together, and she, like I said, there was just something weird about her physicality. Like, when I look back at it now, I totally know what was going on. But at the time, I just didn't get it, because I was thinking she works in cosmetology, she's a hairdresser, she's around that kind of atmosphere, she's gonna figure it out. I can't be the first gay man she's met. But I guess I was wrong, because let me just continue the story and you'll see what I mean. So I think it was around like the third or fourth night that after tennis, she was like, Morgan, I want you to come up to my room before dinner because I have something I want to give you. And here's, sort of like innocent Morgan thinking, oh, all right, sure, I'll come over. What room is it? So I showed up to her room like maybe 10 minutes before we were supposed to meet the other people for dinner. We were meeting other people from the group for dinner. And I assumed that she was just gonna, like open the door and be like, here, this is what I wanted to give you. But she's like, so come inside. And I was like, okay. So I walked in and I was like, we don't have a lot of time. So what's my surprise? And she gave me these like 2 little bottles of shampoo and conditioner. And that was where I was like, okay, this is weird. Why am I coming all the way up to her room for her to give me these little bottles of shampoo and conditioner? And it wasn't the stuff from the hotel. It was obviously something that she brought from home. She had it with her. And she was like, oh, these are, really high class. I think it was like Kerastase or something like that. These are expensive products, but it was like, like the little travel sizes. And she said, I wanted to give you this because I think, it'll help your hair. And I was like, okay, well, cool, thanks a lot. So should we go? And she's like, no, let me give you a little tour of the room. And I'm thinking, well, all these rooms are the same. But, I was polite and I was like, sure, show me around the room. And so she's like, so come along here, let me show you my view. And we went out to her balcony, and her room was a little bit higher than my room. Like, this resort is kind of like on the coast. So it, is gradually descending down to the beach, and right before the beach there's sort of like a little cliff. Like I said, really beautiful resort. So we walked out to the balcony, and as we were walking back, she sat down on the bed, and next to her, laid like out on the bedspread, was like some lingerie. And this is where I was like, okay, something's going on here. And she didn't mention it at all. She just sat down and she was like, yeah, so this is my room. And I was like looking at her and looking at the lingerie and looking at her and looking at the lingerie. And I just said, yeah, cool. Yeah, it looks like my room. Let's go to dinner. So that was where it kind of started to become clear to me that this woman wants the D. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, and I really don't think that I was misinterpreting this because it just seems so obvious that she was like, come up to my room so I can give you these shampoo samples, and she just happened to have lingerie spread out on the bed, and she just happened to sit like right next to it and, like stick out her chest. She was obviously, in my opinion, she was obviously trying to send me some signals. And I feel bad because I should have at that moment, somehow given her some really clear sign that I was A, not interested, that B, it really had nothing to do with her personally, and that C, if she was looking to hook up with somebody during this vacation, she better start knocking on some other door because it's not gonna happen with me. And, not because I wanted to be mean or anything, but just because the situation was uncomfortable for me too. So I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna, sort of take it easy. And so this was my plan. I was planning that this was going to be the last dinner that we had together, and that on the next day I was going to like purposefully sit at another table to sort of give her a sign that I was not interested. And it wasn't like I wanted to leave her sitting there alone because, the tennis group was spread out with, on several different tables, and some people were sitting with other people from the tennis group, some people were sitting with their families, and I just thought, I'm gonna sort of like, find my way to another table, and if she asks, I'll be like, oh, I just wanted to, hang out with other people and get to know them too. So, but that night, the night of the lingerie on the bed, we sat at the dinner table, and then afterwards, we went to the bar. And the thing is in the way this was set up, this resort, is like there was, at nighttime, there was only one like main sort of like, like the main building. And that is where more or less everybody went to at night. There were some bars like down along the pools, but I don't know, people just didn't really go hang out there. So I after dinner, I liked to go to the main area. They had shows, they had, like floor shows with like people who did tango dancing and stuff like that. And I also wanted to go to the bar. We were all sitting at the bar together, and then one person went to bed, and then another person went to bed, and then all of a sudden I was sitting there with her alone. And she started getting like really flirty. And I don't know why I didn't just tell her, Anna, it's not gonna happen. And like I said, this is a while ago. Times were a little bit different back then. I would be much more blunt now. But I was younger, times were different then. I was alone. I didn't know how she would react. I didn't know if she was gonna like make a big deal about it in the tennis group. And I just wanted to not have to deal with it. She had asked me why I was on this trip alone, and I told her, well, yeah, it's just because, I really wanted to focus on tennis, and most of the people I hang out with wouldn't be into this, so I just decided I was going to do it alone. And I asked her then why she was alone, and in the same question, I asked her if she had ever been married, or if she was married, or if she was in a relationship, and she was like, oh, let's not talk about that. And so that's where I was like, okay, not only is she trying to hook up with me, but I think she might be married or, at least in some kind of relationship. And, I'm just not into this. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. But still, for whatever reason, I couldn't get up the courage or whatever to like paint it out clear. So I finished my drink and I went to bed. And then the next day at tennis, I told her, you know, that I was going to be sitting with some other people for dinner, which actually, now that I remember it, it didn't work out. And I ended up sitting with her again, which made it even more uncomfortable. And yeah, and I think then the next day was the day that I like purposefully went completely out of my way to make sure that we had no contact, to sort of like send her a clear message. And then on my last day, we exchanged numbers and in sort of a friendly way. And I felt like it was clear to her that then, you know, that was done. But actually, a couple weeks after I got home, she started sending me messages, and she actually called me and left a message on my machine to ask if I would be interested in sharing a room with her for the tennis trip next year. And I was like, no, I don't think so. So, you know, I don't think that she even got it up until the very end. She was very persistent. And yeah, that's the story. There's no big finale. We didn't hook up. There was no big drama. It was just sort of kind of uncomfortable for a couple days. And, you know, for anybody else, especially women who have been in a situation like this, I totally feel for you. I get you. I know how uncomfortable it can be. But, you know, for me, there's like this whole other factor of the whole discrimination thing. You know, for me, it's not just, you know, like saying, you know, listen, I'm not interested. You know, there's the whole gay thing and the whole, you know, that some people are still not really cool with that. And that adds, you know, a whole new level to being in situations like this. And now comes the time on Sunday Sofatime where I comment on your comments live on air. In last week's Sunday Sofatime, I talked about how I actually missed my very first cruise. It was something that sort of I forgot about because I never got on the ship, and it was a long, long time ago, and it was, you know, not like Royal Caribbean or Carnival or something like that. It was a totally different story. So go check that out if you're interested in that. These comments are referring to that. And the first one is from Trent O'Donnell. Trent writes, "We just got off the Harmony of the Seas, and your shirts were a big hit." So Trent and LaDonda were wearing some of my t-shirts, and people talk to them. It says here, "I hope you sell a lot more. I had several people ask me where to get them. Thanks, Trent and LaDonda, sorry. Thank you guys too." And that's something that makes me happy, is that's what I'm really looking forward to, is that wearing the shirt myself, or if you guys wear them, it's sort of like a sign that we're all, you know, part of this community, and sort of like a secret sign to other people, and then you can talk to each other and know, I know what your shirt is about. Cone! Know what I mean? Stephen Border asks, so did they pay you for the job even though it didn't happen? Curious minds want to know. That's a really good question, Stephen, and I should have talked about that in the video, but the answer is yes, we did get paid, which is a really great thing, because with all the drama it created, if I had not been paid, that would have been like a disaster. So we did get paid. Thanks for asking. Final comment is from Belicious. Belicious writes, "I missed or had to cancel one cruise, but because of a wonderful reason. I was pregnant. If I missed a cruise because of problems with the flight, the weather, health issues, or whatever could come up, I would really be devastated." Yeah, you know, it's so weird to me now to think about this, that the actual cruise part of it was like the least important part to me. I was more interested in the job and the job experience than the actual cruise, but that's totally different now that I've actually been on a cruise. Thanks everybody, as always, for hanging out with me here on Sunday. I look forward to another Sunday Sofa Time next week. Check back on Friday for another travel vlog from around the world, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.